Okay, so just going to go through setting up what is kind of a cheesy looking sprite in Visual Basic. Just to sort of give you the background, I just downloaded a sheet of sprites and then kind of cut out 3 of the sprites. They're zoomed in here so you can sort of see they do have different positions. You can also see I didn't do a great job of keeping them all the same size. So the cheesiness of the demo should be even extra cheesy at this point. Sorry, that's not the file I want. This is the file I want. So I've got my ducky here, and just to give you an idea, as we did before, choose image. This time what I've done is I've gone into project resource file and just kind of grabbed whichever picture I was looking for there, opened it, and then it shows up in this list. That's how I've got these 3 pictures loaded here under resources, and it gives me access to all 3 in the same image. So this image can now be loaded with Ducky 1, Ducky 2, or Ducky 3. So we'll just kind of go over the code I've written here. Get this out of the way. So first thing, dim iCount as integer. Okay, we haven't done a lot of variable work yet, but iCount is just a variable to store a number. The number will represent the number 1, 2, or 3, whichever image is supposed to be on the screen at any given time. Form load, you've seen it a few times now. Basically, this is the code that will run as the form starts up. So right on startup, and it loads into pick duck, my resource is ducky1. Okay, so just that's kind of how the statement's set up. Change the image of pick duck to be equal to my resources. So basically it's saying the resources that are stored in pick duck, and ducky1 becomes that first image, and iCount is 1 to indicate that the first image is on the screen. And then going through, the code is going to be pretty straightforward. If key code is keys left, so that's something we've done before. Picture duck moves to the left, so that's something we've done before. This is something I've added in, and I'll show it a little bit in just a second. But basically I've written code to recognize whether 2 objects have crashed. And right now it just says ouch if they crash into each other. Each time I press the left key, I want my iCount to increase. So it's going to go from image 1 to image 2 to image 3. If iCount is a 1, then show ducky1. If iCount is 2, show ducky2. And if iCount is 3, show ducky3. I intended to hide this from you, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment that out for now. If you put that little apostrophe in front of any line of code in Visual Basic, the code or the program just ignores it. So I'm going to run, we're going to get a couple of problems early on. So I press my key, and the first thing I notice is I'm not even moving. So just something that I wanted to point out. If you have a button on the screen, the button takes the focus away from the rest of the screen, and you can't use the form key down. What you can do is I'm just going to disable or set enabled to false for the button, and then that means I can't click on the button anymore, and my program should start to work. So you can sort of see, oh, what happened there. Initially, you can kind of see he switches from that position to that position to this position, which is a little different, but then stays at that position. And so that kind of comes to the second thing I want to show. This is called a breakpoint. So in my code, when I click on this left bar, this sets a breakpoint in the program so that as soon as my code hits that line, I pop back to the code. So sort of see what's going on here. I press my left key, it jumps to this spot here, tells me that iCount is 1. Okay, so after setting a breakpoint, if you look up here, it's kind of hard to see. The step into command, F11 it says, allows us to go line by line through our code. Let me see if it's working here. And it shows me exactly the path that the code takes. So here, iCount was 2. You I don't know how well you can see that on the screen right here. I count is 2. And so of course it checks to see if I count is 1. It isn't, it skips over it. Checks to see if the I count is 2. It is. And so now it's going to go into here and change the picture, the image on pick duck to be my resources ducky2. And kind of continues on. When I press left again, I come back in here. I count now is 2. I press the F11 to move ahead, and I count now is 3. And of course it jumps down to this line. I count is 3, changes the image to ducky3, and continues on. I press my arrow one more time. I count now starts at 3, gets changed to 4 as it crosses that line. And of course the problem now is there's nothing in here to change the image when I count is 4 or higher. And so as we run this program, I count will just go higher and higher and will never be one of the values 1, 2, or 3 that I wanted from the start. So we'll stop that. We'll take out the breakpoint, and that's why this line was here. The idea being I want my I count to start at 1, go to 2, go to 3, but then after 3 go back down to 0, so that next time around it'll get changed to 1 and start returning to the original image. Now you can't see it very well because the images aren't great, but basically he's going from one image to the next, and so on. And this is the last part of this. When he runs into the hit me button, you get this little ouch pop up. So we'll just take a look at where that comes up. Now we've kind of already seen it, this section right here. If crashed, pick duck with button 1, then message box ouch. Of course, we can also do things like pick duck left equals pick duck left plus 20 here, with the idea that it would then, after he says ouch, push him back. And of course, slightly better yet would be if I said ouch after the fact. What it will now do is, as I move across, when I move into the image, it just says ouch and keeps me from actually crossing paths with the image. Now you can't really tell, but what is in fact happening is I'm getting across this barrier and then it's being shoved back. This line just moves you back to where you just came from, so that it looks like you're not actually able to walk through the image, although through the button, but you are actually walking through the button just a little tiny bit. Now, last thing here, the crashed. This is code that I've written, and down below, and I'll just kind of give this to you, is a function again that I've written, but it makes use of some pretty, I will say, fairly easy to understand code here. Basically, I like it only because it allows you to, first of all, use a function that somebody else has written, and secondly, it's a little bit less code to write over and over and over if you had lots of images on the screen and you wanted to deal with those. Now I put if crashed and the two names of the two things that are crashing, versus kind of using this bounds dot intersects with bounds and so on. But basically, the way it works, the two objects get sent in this case the picture of the duck and the button. The assumption is that quote unquote crashed, the idea of us crashing, is false to start. So until I've determined that there has been a crash starts off as false. And this says if the first object, so whatever the first thing is sent in, if its bounds, so if its edges, intersects with the bounds of the other object, then we change crash to be true. Certainly I could have used basically this code right up here instead and put if pick duck dot bounds dot intersects with in brackets button 1 dot bounds. But again, I kind of like the idea that we use it one time in the function here, and then we can just use the word crash to. I picked the name crash, I made the name crash up, And again, oh, I crashed, bounced me back, ouch. And it's just not going to let me cross paths with that button at all. Okay, so that'll be kind of the lead into the next thing you do. For today, basically, you're going to get yourself 3 or 4 images for the moving left. Eventually, you'll probably do something similar with the up, the right, and the down as well. But you want to see if you can get this one moving and working properly. So take a look at that, try to create yourself a little moving guy, and that'll lead you into the next assignment.